It is with great pleasure that we welcome you today to the 9th annual presentation of the Lantos Human Rights Prize. As I was pondering this morning what to say, I immediately thought of first of all, we want to welcome everyone who is here, all the members of Congress who have taken time from their busy schedules. Thank you for being here. The members of the Diplomatic Corps, we appreciate each and every one of you. And I won't name each one of you because I'm not sure exactly who has made it and who has not. And every single one of you who is here representing your concern for human rights around the globe. You are important and your actions matter. And we hope that you are not only here, but that you will go away from here inspired to do more, to help those who are truly struggling around the world under enormous oppression in various circumstances. We are particularly grateful to have with us Phil Friedman, who has enabled the Lantos Foundation to go forward with our work, remembering my dad's commitment to human rights and my mother's commitments to human rights. And we are grateful also to the Blavatnik Family Foundation, who is represented today by Julie Chervinsky. Their work documenting Jewish soldiers who fought in World War II valiantly is represented in our program insert today. As I thought today about my remarks, I thought about the very first lesson my dad ever gave me on public service. And this lesson has been oft repeated, but I feel that it bears repeating. My dad, we were sitting at our family's dining room table, and I remember him telling me that some people choose in life to devote their lives to just making their lives more comfortable, and others who might be able to just spend their life enjoying everything that this world has to offer in the way of comfort and excitement, instead choose to dedicate themselves to the service of others. He made it clear to me that he felt that was the only meaningful way to live your life. And he made a picture to demonstrate to me the way that this works. He said, this can be represented by concentric circles. And he made one circle. He said, that's yourself. He said, you have to take care of yourself. You have to not do things that are unhealthy. You have to make sure you get enough rest. You have to educate yourself. You have to feed both your mind and your spirit. Because if you are not strong, you will not be able to make a contribution. The next circle was our family. He said, the next responsibility you have is to the family who is closest to you. He said, if you are not caring for your family, if you are not doing your best to be a contributor and someone who loves and is concerned about the well-being of your family, everything else will be less meaningful. That is a vital link in this circle. The next circle was our community, the people in our neighborhood, the people who live near to us, that we love them, that we work to serve them, that we're aware of their concerns. And the next circle was our nation. He said, it's important, we are blessed to be part of a nation where we can be active citizens. We don't want to be idiots, as the Greeks referred to those who did not participate in the agora, in the common concerns of their community and their nation. So that is vital, that we be active and contributing, that we vote and that we care about the issues and we do something about them. And then finally there is the world. And he said the world is full of great suffering and trouble, and we need to, when we have been blessed with so much, it is vital that we care about the world. Today we are honoring someone who has really cared about the world. He has dedicated himself to serving God and his fellow human beings. And I feel moved to say that as Father Desbois has collected not only the stories of literally hundreds of thousands of mostly Jews who were killed by bullets in the Nazi Holocaust, who never made it to the gas chambers, as he has collected the stories from those members of those communities who survived, who saw those things, who participated, I think he was not only doing a service to those who will not be forgotten because of his work, but he was doing a service to those who were able at last to share stories that had been left deep and hidden within their own souls. He was serving as truly a confessor for probably tens of thousands of people who had seen things and experienced things they had never really wanted to share. I'm so grateful because I think this kind of deep understanding of ourselves and deep commitment to others is vital if we are going to change the direction of our world at this time. And I'm so thankful that we can be here each year to recognize someone who has set an example of that kind of service, of going beyond themselves to serve not only their families, their communities, their nations, but the world by their examples and their actions. So today, we welcome you. We hope you will learn much and that you'll take much with you and you'll go forward and be committed to doing more everywhere you go to make this world a better place. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Annette. And before I lay out the remainder of the program, I want to ask for a round of applause for our mother and the chairman of the Lantos Foundation, Mrs. Annette Lantos. She honors us with her presence here today, and all who knew my father knew that she was the real power behind the throne and the real heart and soul of the human rights work that he did in his many years in Congress. Next, we will be hearing from Lantos Foundation board member and my late father's dearest friend, Mr. Phil Friedman. Following Mr. Friedman, we will be honored to hear from Father Dubois' admirer and friend, Congressman Jamie Raskin, and we are particularly delighted that the co-chair of the Lantos Human Rights Commission, Congressman Jim McGovern, is here, and we would ask him to come up and say a few words as well. After that, the extraordinary journalist, Laura Logan, who has shared Father Dubois' story so grippingly in 2 separate reports for 60 minutes, will speak, and after that, we'll have a brief video presentation, and the program will proceed to that point.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Annette, little Annette, Katrina, Dick, Father Dubois, Laura, it's a pleasure to be here this morning and share with you a couple of my thoughts about what we're doing here today and why we are doing it. In everyone's life, every once in a while, we get lucky. We have a defining moment. In my case, 2 individuals we will be talking about today in this forum affected my life. One, about 30 years ago, on a plane traveling from New York to Washington, I met an extraordinary couple, Annette and Tom Lantos. I speak Hungarian. I saw them boarding the plane, and I stood up, and in perfect Hungarian, I welcomed them on the plane. And we spent about 45 minutes talking, but then another 45 minutes on the tarmac, sharing thoughts and sharing our background. And I'm saying it was a defining moment in my life because the next 25 years, I consider Tom to be my mentor, my older brother, someone I looked up to, someone I tried to follow in life. For those of you who are in this room, probably I'm not going to say anything that you don't know. Tom was an extraordinary human being, an intellectual, a politician in true sense of this word, someone who really cared about human rights, probably the only member of the United States Congress who was arrested for demonstrating in front of the embassy of Rwanda, someone who really took human rights to his heart. And then, many years later, about 6 years ago, I had the good fortune to meet Father Dubois. I was invited to dinner to the home of the French consul in New York, and for the first time, I heard Father Dubois talking about Holocaust with bullets, about bullets, by bullets. And while I didn't know much about what he was describing, because right now you probably notice my New England accent, I wasn't born in the United States. I was born in the former Soviet Union, in the Ukraine, but the Russians, the Soviet Union, never spoke. They never talked about what happened during the war. I didn't know about hundreds and hundreds of mass graves in the former Soviet Union. Growing up, I never heard of Babi Yar. I didn't know that in one day, 33,771 Jewish people been murdered outside of Kiev. The Russians kept it secret. And here I heard Father Desbois talking about what happened in the world. 1,700 mass graves in 7 countries of Eastern Europe. We didn't know about it. And I got really involved, and I really got enamored by the work Father Desbois is doing. A lot of people talk about human rights. Father Desbois is doing something about it. And why, do you ask, I am so involved and so interested in this subject? I am the son of Holocaust survivors. My mom, at the tender age of 16, was taken to Auschwitz. My father spent 4.5 years in hard labor in Siberia for the only crime that they've been born Jewish. They did commit no other crime. And knowing that a French priest, a Catholic priest, takes upon himself this awesome responsibility to find the graves of people who no one knows where they buried. That's why we are here today. That's why we're honoring Father Desbois. Looking at what's happening in the world today, one can start losing faith in humanity. Just last week, I was in Armenia. I was standing in front of documents in the Museum of Genocide in Armenia. 100 years ago it happened. Then it was Nazi Germany. Then it was Darfur. Then it's Srebrenica. Then it's Rwanda. It never stops. And we, as human society, need to take responsibility. And while all this happening, and one can lose faith, I'm very optimistic. And I tell you why. Just in this room looking out, I see a lot of young people. I know it will be their responsibility to pick up the torch and continue fighting for human rights. It is important. It is not important necessarily for me, maybe for the older generation, but it is important to our children and grandchildren. It is what kind of world we will leave behind, what kind of world our children will be living in. So today, I want to thank Father Desbois for incredible work he is doing. I think the Tom Lantos Prize is the most deserving prize, and I know that my friend Tom Lantos, looking down, is very proud of what's happening here today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. And indeed, with human rights violations rampant across the earth today, what a pleasure it is to be here with the friends and the family of Tom Lantos, who was such a visionary figure in the struggle for human rights, which is the very life instinct of civilization in the new century. And so I want to salute all of those people here who worked with Tom Lantos. I didn't have the benefit of being in Congress at the time when he was there, but his family for keeping his beautiful and radiant legacy alive. So thank you very much. I think we also owe a debt of gratitude that we ought to express for France and for the French today. I once read a biography of Jefferson where he was quoted as giving a toast when he was ambassador plenipotentiary over in France, and he said, "Every human being on earth who loves freedom has two countries, his own and France." And today I'm reminded of the pioneering role that the French have played in terms of establishing human rights of the people. So we are here to honor Pierre Dubois, who makes me feel a little bit religious. Unlike my colleague, Congressman McGovern, I'm not a super religious person, but I did go to Sunday school, and one lesson that stuck with me, I remember there was a Sunday where we talked about exemplary prophets. And exemplary prophets are a category of figures who appear in the Bible who, through simply the force of their life and their work, demonstrate to other people how to live. So they're not prophets because they're clairvoyant. They're not prophets because they can see into the future, but they're prophets because they demonstrate to others what it means at its best to be human. And I would say in that sense, Father Desbois is an exemplary prophet, the kind that we see in the Bible and we see all too rarely out here in reality. His project, for those of you who have met him or who've read his work, is extraordinary. And to me, it all comes down to one word. It's about memory. It's about human memory, not losing the lives of human beings who were swallowed up in the darkness of fascism and Nazism and totalitarianism in the last century. And his whole life is a testament to the idea that every human life matters, including those that have already been extinguished by fascism. And they must be recovered not just when they were part of the industrial slaughterhouses of Auschwitz and Treblinka, but also if they were victims of the Holocaust by bullets that took place in the killing fields throughout Poland and Hungary and Estonia and so on. And he's dedicated his life to finding those mass graves and to finding out what happened to those people and what happened to their homes, because all too often we think that the Holocaust was just this industrial design where people were hoarded into the concentration camps. But in many other places, it was ad hoc, it was seemingly random, it was very personal, and it was about going to people's houses, pulling them out, killing them, digging graves and dumping them into the ground. And he has dedicated his life to finding everyone who died in such a terrible and awful way. So the fascists on earth today want everybody to forget, right? The essence of fascism is Holocaust revisionism, denying that the Holocaust happened, making people forget the histories of their own country, blotting out the genocides, blotting out the human rights violations. And so all of us have an obligation to follow in the path of Father Desbois and make sure that we don't forget. And through your example, you remind us of what's best about our country, that we are a country that was conceived with those Enlightenment ideals of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness for everyone and the consent of the governed, and all of us are created equal. We obviously didn't begin perfectly, but we have struggled to become something much greater and much better than anybody thought we might ever be. And we are, in fact, a great liberal democracy, but we must once again speak up for human rights, both here and abroad. And Father Desbois, you make it easier for all of us to do it. So thank you very much.
I'm Congressman Jim McGovern, and I have the honor to co-chair the Lantos Human Rights Commission along with my colleague, Congressman Randy Hultgren, who is here today. And I just want to say to Annette and to Katrina and to Annette and to the entire Lantos family, thank you for all that you do for human rights. Thank you for keeping the legacy of Tom alive, and thanks for your passion and just never giving up. This is important, and I think sometimes many of us don't realize how important the work you do is. So, thank you for being born. We all are in your debt, and I want to thank Phil Friedman too for his wonderful remarks. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for keeping Tom Lantos' legacy alive. And we're also here, obviously, to honor Father Dubois. You know, I had the privilege of serving with Tom Lantos in Congress for a few years, and one of the things that he taught me was that if the United States of America stands for anything, we need to stand out loud and foursquare for human rights. Tom was a wonderful man. The only time I ever witnessed him getting all worked up was when he learned about a human rights atrocity or a human rights violation, or somebody, when he heard about a prisoner of conscience. And then he, with all the force he could muster, would go out and fight on behalf of those people. You know, Jamie Raskin, I think, beautifully explained why the work of Father Dubois is so important. But I just want to reiterate one point, and that is, you know, the people who do these mass killings, they all think they're going to get away with it. They all think that nobody will pay attention. They all think that the people whose lives that they took don't matter. The work that Father Dubois is doing shows the opposite. It shows that every single human being is important. Every single human being's life matters. And that is something that we need to not only admire, but we need to be inspired by his example. So it is. I'm honored here to join everybody in honoring Father Dubois, and I thank him for his work and for his example, and I want to welcome you to the United States Capitol. This is a place sometimes where we talk about stupid things, but you have now elevated the discussion going on in Capitol Hill, and I really appreciate it very, very much. So thank you so much for all that you do.
My name is Randy Hultgren, Congressman from Illinois. It's my privilege to be co-chairman with my good friend Jim McGovern of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission here in Congress. And I want to especially thank the Lantos family. So grateful, Mrs. Lantos and the entire family, the incredible legacy, the very big shoes that you continue to encourage us to fill, to move forward. And Father Dubois, we just want to thank you so much for your work. It is so important for us to never forget, to always remember, to always be aware that these types of atrocities do continue. So much, there still is, unfortunately, evil in human hearts that want to do damage and want to destroy. And yet we must always remember, we must always be vigilant. Every single life is of precious, ultimate value, and we need to recognize those lives, continued recognizing the lives that are being threatened today, but also recognizing those lives that were taken so wrongly, so unjustly, so prematurely. So thank you, Father Dubois, for your work. Thank you all for being here. And it is encouraging to me that we can do this. I absolutely agree with my co-chairman that a lot of times we get stuck in frustrating, muddy debates that really bring us down. I think lower what the discussion ought to be about. This is so important, and it is honestly something that does bring us together. Democrats, Republicans, senators, House members, and we are continually committed to trying to do everything we can to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, to stand up for those who are being abused. And so it's my privilege to be a little part of this, but again, just to thank the Lantos family. We're so grateful to you, And Father Dubois, thank you for your work. Keep it up. We need you. We need people like you, and you inspire us. So God bless you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura Logan, and I once asked Father Desbois what we learned about the Holocaust that we didn't know because of him and because of his work. And he said to me, I learned that anybody can be a killer and anybody can be a victim, and that we like to watch other people being killed when we are sure that we ourselves will not be killed. And he learned that, not in a book, not from someone in Congress, anywhere. He learned it by finding the last surviving witnesses of one of the worst atrocities in human history. And he did it by going from village to village to village and talking not just to the witnesses, but to the local officials, the people who were children at the time, who carried those memories for decades. And very often, Patrick, do you remember that one village we were in Eastern Europe, in Transnistria and Moldova, where the man had his map ready and his story, and he said to Father Desbois, I've been waiting for you. And Patrick told me then that he often hears that. Children kept those memories, the details intact, because they knew instinctively in their hearts that somehow it was wrong and they shouldn't forget. And that old man sat and recited the name of every Jewish family in the village that he watched being murdered as a boy. And knowing Patrick as well as I do, I know that he would want everyone in this room to not just pay attention to his work in the Holocaust, but to him and his team, Marco, where are you? You're here. He's been with Father Dubois at his side for 17 years, and the team of Yazidis and Gypsies, Romani, and others in Europe who work closely with him. What he has learned about the Holocaust, he has taken to Guatemala, he has taken to Iraq, and one of the most striking things I learned from him was that when we hear about an atrocity or a massacre or some kind of terrible thing happening in the world, the first thing we like to say is, wow, that's inhuman, how terrible. And we distance ourselves from what's happening, and we make ourselves feel better about the fact that we're not that person, and we're not part of that place. And therefore, somehow our responsibility is diminished slightly in that distancing. And what Patrick will tell you that he has come to believe profoundly through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews recorded over the last 17, 18 years is that there's nothing more human than the capacity to kill, that it resides in each one of us, and that people know how to kill like a dog knows how to swim. I remember when he told me that. You throw a dog in the water, if it's never felt water before, it can find its way to the side. And those are the stories, not just of those, the people who were members of the SAS and wore the swastika on their shoulders, but the people in the villages who willingly stood up and helped to slaughter their people, their neighbors, right? The man who noticed a woman had hidden her young child between her legs under her skirt, and the Nazis were disappearing into the distance. And he pulled the child from the mass grave and beat his head against a tree until it exploded. And that's just one of the memories and the stories that Patrick lives with and has lived for most of his life now, and that he carries with him. And when I asked him, as we walked down the side of a mass grave together, I said to him, Patrick, do you ever wonder how you got here? Why you're here? How is it that you came to be in this place, this person, this man, carrying this? And he said, no, I never wonder that. He said, always. And I remember he paused and he looked back at the mass grave to his right, down the ravine, and he said, always I say to them, finally we found you. And a lot has been written about all of these things and about the work of Yahad and Unum, which the name is chosen for a reason, together as one. But if you really want to understand what motivates Patrick Desbois, it's that. We found you. Because it's not just that every human being matters, it's just that in the act of walking away, we allow people to get away with it. And we still do. We talk a lot about human rights. And today, Syria is Auschwitz. And Patrick told me once, we're standing at the gates of Auschwitz, and we're looking inside, and we're saying, oh, that's awful, as he says in his French accent. And then we turn and walk away. So I am very moved to see Patrick honored in this way, because I have some sense of the tremendous sacrifice that his team and his people have made and are still making. We went to the refugee camps in northern Iraq together and met with Yazidi women. He has spent many hours in the camps talking to and creating the most, probably the most detailed human map of the genocide carried out by ISIS and their allies today. And very few people are paying attention. Patrick likes to say that we care a lot about genocide when it's past. We like to study the history of genocide, and we like to make ourselves feel better by saying that we're doing something about it. But we don't care too much about the genocide that's happening now. It's stunning to me that the genocide in Rwanda, when you've been to Rwanda, that they killed almost 10,000 people a day, and we knew it was happening. And we did as much as we did in the previous genocides and the ones since. But Patrick, you and Marco don't sit back. And I know that you're trying to work with the children and the people in the camps, because what he will tell you is that the people coming out of those territories have nothing left of themselves. They are decimated in every sense of the word. And if you don't give them hope, you don't give them something to live for, something better to live for, they will never break the bonds of ISIS and what they have learned to be in their time with them. And the legacy of that is the one we hand to our children. So Katrina and Annette, and Mrs. Tom Lantos, Annette, I understand from everyone that we wish we had a Tom Lantos in Congress today. And I have no doubt, from what I know of your father, that he would feel this was a fitting tribute to him in every sense of the word. But Patrick's work is not about the past. It's also about what's happening now and what that says for us going forward, and that we carry that responsibility every day. So, merci, bravo, Patrick, finalement. And thank you very, very much for coming.
And she said, oh, I will show you. And she put her boots, she put her jacket, and she brought us at the end of the village, and she showed 18 small mass graves. She told me I dreamt all my life to find somebody to say what I did. She was 14 years old, Ukrainian, and the morning when the German arrived, they called 10 girls and with a spade. And she asked her mom, must I go? And the mom told her, if you don't go, we will shoot you. And so she was forced to walk on the corpse between every shooting, to pack the corpse, to make space. And she said, suddenly all my schoolmates, Jewish schoolmates arrived and I had to walk on them. My mom came back from the market and she told us we have to suit very well because they killed the Jews this afternoon. So they were suited and they went, and she said for the first shooting we got a very good place, we saw everything. But for the second shooting we didn't get a good place. The Jewish women, before being killed, they threw their jewels because they don't want to give them to the German. And sometimes we find Magen David, the wedding rings, medallion. And I say, it's the last jest that this girl did in 42, just before she was shot. And every time I find it, I say, we found you, finally we found you. I never pray because it's to respect the Jewish identity of these people, so I never make a prayer. The fact is to say, finally we found you. Me, when I go with my team, I say, don't forget the dead people are waiting for you. They wait for us since 70 years. When you were sure you were not Jew, you were not gypsy, you were not gay, you were not communist, you were not partisan, why you would be afraid? So you went to watch. People are attracted to go to watch people being killed when if they think they have no risk for them. One lady, by example, she told me, I went to see all the shooting. It was 17 and she was a teenager. And I said, why did you stay to see all these shootings? And she said, it was interesting for the children. And I heard this phrase now hundreds of times, interesting for the children. I realized also that everybody could be a killer, everybody could be a victim. When I knock at a door in Russia, Ukraine, or anywhere, they open the door, and I don't know at that moment if they save Jews or kill Jews. And I would discover that in the interview. And me, when I was younger, I was thinking that the killers had awful faces, were psychotic, were monsters, and the saviors were nice people. Unfortunately, it's only one humankind. And so, everybody can be a killer, everybody can be a victim. It's why we have to teach people to say, one day you will have to take responsibility. Sometimes you can think in America you are in a bubble of protections, but that's not true. There is only one planet, and it's burning in so many countries. Be aware, when it begins, it's a disease. The people who spread their disease are smart also. We are never to underestimate the enemies. It's a big mistake. When I was young, people told me, don't speak to deniers. They're old. You have not to speak with them. They will disappear. They are still old, but suddenly there arrive new deniers now who are 40 years old, 45 years old, who are driving crowds of people behind themselves. So I learned, I say, what a mistake. And I say, you must stay in a fighting position. The worst would be to sleep well and to dream, because you will wake up in a nightmare. The people who saved Jews, most of them were simple people. And we had a lot of Jews who survived of France because thousands of French took risk to hide them. So I always say, I believe in minority. I believe in minority who stand up and carry the flag, and after they can draw people behind them. So, for example, when I teach in Georgetown or we teach in other places, I always say, one day perhaps you will be part of this minority, to drive the boat, to be strong. You know, you are from a family. Mr. Lantos is very well known, but he has a name. It's somebody. It's somebody who accepted to stand in a very high-level function in America. He could have an easy life, care about nothing except swimming pool, dog, and holidays and job. But no, he has chosen to be a face. And like that, we have people behind. Me, I think that's the future, to try to say to people, if among you there are people who don't sleep well, perhaps you will be called to take a position in your life.
It's not easy when you speak the last one. So when we built Yachad in Unum together, in Hebrew and Latin, we didn't realize, because now we have a team in France, we have a team in Brussels, we have a team in Guatemala, we have a team in Iraq, but we didn't realize we had to be together with so many. And you are part of the so many. I see a representative of the Holocaust Museum of Washington. Without your museum, you will not be here, because you gave us access to the archives. Without the teaching in Georgetown, Center for Jewish Civilization, and all the students who are here, would not be here confronting the new generations to teach. Without the 2 million of Jews who were waiting for us, sleeping in the mass grave since 42, 43, 44, with no visit, no Kaddish, no prayer, I wouldn't be here. Without the gypsies, the Roma, shot in mass graves, and for a Roma mass grave, there is no stone, only 2 mass graves with a stone, I would not be here. And today, without the Yazidi, the Christians sleeping in refugee camps, today, now, and my team too, I will not be here. So after 15 years, 17 years, I would like to share with you a few things that we discovered. The first thing I would say, not easy to hear, there is no genocide without the neighbors. You know, when you work, you work in Ukraine, you see that Ukrainians were requisitioned to dig the mass grave, to fulfill the mass grave, to sell the suits, to take the gold teeth, etc. You say, After you go to Poland, after you go to Belarus, after you go to Russia, after you go to Lithuania, and the same. It's the same. Holocaust couldn't happen without the neighbors, actively. But after, when you go to Iraq, suddenly there is no Polish, no German, no Lithuanian, and the killing, the arrestation of the Yazidi by Daesh, ISIS, was with the presence of all the neighbors waiting for the belonging, like the neighbors of Ukraine and other countries. No genocide without the neighbors. Second thing is that it was a shock for me at the beginning to discover that the shooting of the Jews, gypsies, disabled people, partisans, were done in public. I remember in a village, a girl told me, the director of the school, he gathered all the children, and he said, tomorrow no class, because we kill our enemies. You can go to watch, and it will be the lesson the day after. She told me we were 37 children, and we arrived too early. The Germans were not here, and the Jews neither, so we sat under a tree. And she said, after it was terrible. I said, you stayed the full day? She told me, yes, we cried, and we stayed the full day. And as we said in the movie, she said this famous phrase, it was interesting for us, the children. So I had to admit slowly, because at the beginning you think it's a national question, an Ukrainian question, a Polish question, a Russian question, but after in Iraq, you have to change. You see, it's a human question. When people are killed in a genocide, and you are absolutely sure you will not be a victim, you don't risk anything, you are attracted to watch. It's why the Nazis didn't hesitate to make so many souvenir pictures of the shootings that they sent to their family, to their wives, to their lovers. We have found a minimum of 400 photographed pictures, mainly in Holocaust Museum archives, about the shootings. But ISIS now, they don't need a Leica. They use a small telephone. And we found every day, at least 4, 5, 6 videos of beheading and shootings. I discovered also that more you advertise a mass crime, less people will react. When you say the majority of the people say, it's awful, it's disgusting, but the people who are in favor will follow. More you show it, more people will keep silence. Take a moment to think. Auschwitz was secret, and everybody knows Auschwitz. The shootings were public. Nobody speaks about them. It took me also a long time to realize that today we are in a new period. Elie Wiesel is no more with us. He was the only mondial face or survivor well known on the planet, inside the Jewish community, but outside the Jewish community too. We are entering slowly in a new period. And slowly, we see here and there, people finally will feel free. Free of Holocaust, because they were not free to speak, they were not free to say they were ultra-right, they were not free to say they were still thinking like a neo-Nazi. And you see that in Charlottesville, but you see that in Germany in Bundestag, and you see that in Austria, and you see that in other countries. So also, in every country, we think it's a national problem. But unfortunately, it's spreading. Not speaking of Arab countries, I went to a market in one Arab country, and I went to the main bookstore. I found 10 books of Hitler, pro-Hitler. I didn't dare to buy them. I asked if they had a non-transparent bag, and they gave me a transparent bag, and I bought free, and nobody cared. It was not a problem to buy free books pro-Hitler, not only Mein Kampf. We are in a new period. And me as a French, of course, we are very sensitive to that. Today, since a few weeks, we have the trial in Paris of the brother of Mohamed Merah, who killed Jews in Toulouse and killed soldiers. And yesterday, they interviewed the grandfather. You know, he lost his son, and his little daughter was very young and shot by Merah. And he said this phrase. He said, in France, I knew they killed a lot of people because they were Jews, but I didn't imagine they will kill again people because they are Jews. So I will finish to say, on the other side, on our side, sometimes we hear there is Shoah fatigue. But me, I don't see Hitler fatigue. When I go in these countries, I don't see in the bookstores book of Mao, of Pol Pot, of Stalin. Hitler is a brand. Hitler is a reference. I made conferences all over the planet. Nobody asked me who is Hitler. Never. In China, in Asia, in Latin America, never. So we have to wake up, because on the other side, we feel free. They are working hard, and they know to connect each other very easily. The bad people connect much quickly than the good people. So I am very thankful to the Lantos family. I knew the Lantos name since a long time, even from my village in France. I knew him. He succeeded to stand in the darkest situation, taking a risk, and knew the family. You have the courage to follow and to spread the word. But we have to see how to turn to new generations. Many young people now don't know anything or don't care so much about Holocaust, genocide, and mass crimes. They feel sometimes an easy life and are wondering why grandpa and grandma are still speaking about that. I heard many families talking to me in America and say, my children don't care. We have to work hard to transmit that. And so that tomorrow we'll have another name, that Lantos, for the Congress of a high position in America or in another country. Otherwise, on the other side, they are preparing darkness. Thank you.
We thank you all for being here. And before I give my very brief concluding remarks, there are a couple of additional people I'd like to recognize. We're very, very honored that our previous recipient of the Lantos Human Rights Prize, Madame Rabia Kadir, is here with us today. Please stand to be recognized, Madame Kadir. I'm also so grateful that a friend and former colleague of mine, Ambassador Hannah Rosenfeld, who was our global ambassador to combat anti-Semitism and is a great admirer and partner, really, of the work of Father Dubois, is here. Please, Hannah, stand. I know that Senator Hassan of New Hampshire joined us, and we had many other members here, and we appreciate all of them and understand that they had to return to go vote. My dear Father Dubois, it is I who have the privilege of thanking you today for being with us, for allowing us to recognize and salute you for the unbearable work you have been called to do. A call which you have answered with undaunted determination. As I read your powerful memoir, I realized that this calling was one that haunted you before you ever realized it. Your own beloved grandfather, Claudius, who had been deported during the war to a camp in Ukraine, Rawaruska, spoke without speaking, without words, of horrors endured and witnessed. And somehow, even as a little boy, you could hear the call to find and uncover what was so painfully buried and hidden. I am reminded of the famous poem by Francis Thomas, The Hound of Heaven, in which the writer is pursued with unhurrying chase and unperturbed pace by this heavenly hound, who is none other than God himself. Father Dubois, we are grateful beyond words that you answered this call, that you allowed the heavenly hound to catch you and send you on this assignment. Yours has been a labor of uncovering hidden crimes and hidden truths. You have been called to minister to the haunted. First, to the victims, who cried out from the ground to be found, for their fate to be known. You have found them, and in so doing, you have brought them a measure of justice, and we pray, a measure of peace. You have also been called, Father Dubois, to find the witnesses, and in some cases, the abettors of the Holocaust by bullets. We do not know what to do with these people. We are troubled by them, by their deeds, by their words, by their silence. But we understand that you were called to find them as well, to bring a measure of reckoning and truth to their buried secrets. And in so doing, you have saved memory and history itself. Father Dubois, you were called by God to seek out the haunted, and now we too are haunted. We are haunted by your words that anyone can be a killer, anyone can be a victim. We don't want it to be true, but we recognize that it is. But we are also haunted by your call to take responsibility and to wake up to the evils around us now, to the darkness and the hate marching not in the distant fields and forests removed by many decades, but right now, whether on Mount Sinjar or in Myanmar or in the streets of the lovely city of Charlottesville, just a short distance from where we sit today. And finally, Father Dubois, we are haunted, and I pray we will remain haunted, by the realization that anyone can be a rescuer. Anyone can be a deliverer. Even me, even you, if we will allow ourselves to be caught by the hound of heaven. Thank you all for being here and for being part of the 2017 Lantos Human Rights Prize.